Well, welcome back to another episode of Snow Farm Underground. Trying to figure out this video stuff, and I'm in a new room. So, in real time, it sounds pretty tinny. So, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to sound on the video, but we're going to go ahead and try. So, it's been a while. We're busy. This is the busy time of the year for sure. I think everybody's going through that right now. And today is just going to be kind of a free flowing conversation about what we've been doing, what we're planning for, what we're trying to get to, and challenges we're seeing, wins, and just give you a little update. One, all five of you who listen, you're very appreciated. Uh, Andrea is an absolute, just huge blessing. Every day, I am very, very thankful that she picked me. So I don't think she ever listens to these because she is super busy right now. So since she won't, I'll brag on her a little bit. She is finishing up some kind of holistic nutrition and herbalism program that she's explained it to me several times. All my years around colleges, I still don't. The credentialism that she's accomplishing, I don't understand. What I do understand is her knowledge about herbs, diet, all these different things, very, very improved. So that side has been really fun to watch her blossom and talking about things. So we started processing our own lard 5-6 years ago, to the point now where I don't think we cook with anything else. She has some olive oil that she'll cook with. I am 100% lard. If there is any kind of oil needed, it's lard. Betty Crocker cake mix, lard, doesn't matter. So that part I really enjoy sharing that with folks. We've got to get back into pig production. So that's one of the projects we've got going on here in the spring. Hopefully the next month. There's some folks that have American guinea hogs between us and where we go to church. So hopefully one of these Sundays we can stop and visit the farm, because I think that's what we're going to go with, because I can process those myself if need be. We have the best processor that we found in Medill called Butler's B&B. I just can't say enough good things. If you're in the area at all, call them up. Very, very pleased. Wonderful customer service. Cuts are great. Just everything you're looking for in a small butcher shop. They don't have a retail meat counter, but we also get all of our meat back. So that part I really, really appreciate about them. This last weekend, Andrew and I went up to Slaughterville to the Enos Farms for a B class. Stephen Enos, I think I'm saying his last name right. I don't have his card on me, but fantastic course. Hands-on, I don't know how he's ever going to make any money on what he's doing, because there's just a bunch of folks like us that are just stumbling their way through. It was a solid 7 hours of hands-on, answering questions. Tremendous. Super, super thankful. And we're going next month to learn how to split hives, because that's the thing. We have all the equipment, have all the hardware, and I think we've told the story. If not, I had a friend out at the base whose in-laws had sold their place and needed to get rid of their bees in quick time. It was a screaming deal. I know a good deal when I see it. We'd had one hive for a few months. Didn't know what I was doing. That hive has been great. We haven't killed that hive that was gifted to us. So went through everything in a trailer, and we did it in one trip. But it was the back of the Sequoia was completely full, and then a 16-foot stock trailer was full front to back. So we did it backwards. You should go to the class first and then get the bees. But our big thing right now is just how do we increase the bee production and take care of them, do it in a way where it's profitable, because at the end of the day, the farm is a business and we have to make money everything we're doing. So learned a ton. Really feel much more comfortable. I think by the time we get done with this, it's 8 or 9 months of one workshop a month. And that'll be something as we get better at this, when folks come on, we can share what we know. But I think with the bees, it definitely is a lifelong learning process. So that part, awesome. The had a man. I just work with the best people. I am very, very lucky to get to have really thoughtful conversations every day at work. And one of the guys that I really, really get along with came in today. And he's like, "What's worst case scenario for everything that's going on?" And I think the thing that's been really lost that no one talks about is just how much we've entered how much debt we have on the federal side. We really, I believe, have entered that hockey stick phase of the debt service. Now the Japanese have been in this basically since the 90s. They're at 300% debt to GDP. We're 150 now. That's not counting our Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. We have promised folks more money than there is in the planet coming due in the next 5 to 15 years, depending on how the numbers break, how long the boomers stay in the workforce, and how long they live. So there's two different things there. One, how long can we continue to prop this up? The Japanese have been doing it for a really long time, but they're very insular. They haven't sold their debt to anyone else. All their debt is owned inside the country. So it's just going right back in their economy, where we're going to end up paying this out to folks outside the United States. The other thing that no one talks about is when you do that, we're going to outsource inflation just like we have right now. So we haven't felt the inflation of the United States dollar, the extra 11 trillion or so we've created in the last 4 years, like the rest of the world has. And at some point, those dollars are going to come as folks start to de-dollarize. That money is going to come back here. So again, there's nothing you can do about it. I was talking about this with Andrea and the Reds when July of 2020, when I said we've got to sell the house. All this money we printed, I didn't see an end of it then. And I knew, and I think everyone who's any kind of Austrian economics, it's pretty straightforward. If you create more money, inflation is going to be the result. You can hide it for a while, but at some point it's going to come due. Can we hide it for another year? Sure. Can we hide it for 5 years? Maybe. 10 years. As soon as we get into the baby boomers really beginning to chew up Social Security and Medicare. So the doctor visits, and then the other part of this no one talks about is you have all these folks thinking that they're going to get something out of their parents' estate. And as soon as those folks go into a nursing facility, that house is not going to be the heirs anymore. So I think you're going to see a ton of that, those homes of folks who go into nursing homes. And it's not like they go in the open market after the state seizes them, right? Those are going to end up just, again, in Vanguard, BlackRock, things like that, as investment vehicles. So where I think a lot of millennial kids have been banking on a inheritance in a way that they're going to own a home. If their parents' health fails and they can't take care of them in that home, they're not going to get anything. It's going to continue. Jack Spirko talked about this. The first place I heard it, I don't know, 5, 7, 8, 9 years ago, about downward class migration. I think the solid middle class we had here my entire lifetime as a Gen Xer really is going to be a quaint memory, because the folks who can weather this and make it through the other side are going to have the hard assets, productive, real things. And whether that's a plumbing business or a farm or whatever it is, real assets are going to matter. So on that side, how do you get through on the other side? And it's the most basic thing, right? Don't have any debt, or as little debt as you can, and invest in real assets. What are real assets? Bitcoin's real. I still remember reading about Bitcoin for the first time in 2011, and the gentleman on the website I followed at the time gave really sage advice. I've read the white paper. I think it's going to be a thing. Bitcoin just passed $1 a coin. you should buy 100 coins. Go throw $100 at it. I tried to track it down at that time, and I spent probably a week trying to track it down. Oh, if only, right? So, such is life. How much comfort folks are going to have going to Bitcoin, I don't know. The other part about it, can you use it as a vehicle? This isn't financial advice, right? But can you use it as a vehicle to save? Sure. But it's so clunky to try and buy a Coke with it that on that side, I don't know. Peer-to-peer is great. I don't know how you run a business. So it's going to be interesting that side. Gold, silver, I don't know. Silver has been so stagnant for so long, and gold's within a couple $100 of what it was in 2011 during the Occupy. And it should be just on inflation, way higher. So I am not convinced there at all that it's a real asset. As far as a meaningful way to hedge against it. Productive farmland, it is silly now what it costs to buy, what Andrew and I have been able to acquire. Can you still go in with a family or a group of friends and afford 10, 15 acres? You can. With the interest rates, if you don't have a bunch of cash to put down, it's going to be a slog. And hopefully the thing that Andrew and I have been really clear about in what we do, there's a ton of physical labor every day. Rain or shine, hot, cold, doesn't matter. You have to be out doing it. And that's one of the things where we've been looking since we were at Milford, the last place, that everything, especially here, is how do we make this so that we can continue to do this into our late 60s, early 70s, God willing, health good, right? So that's one of the things, the place you buy. Can you get in and out of it year round? The animals you're going to have. That's one of the things I really do like about the American guinea hogs, even the Belty cattle, the smaller cattle, the Dexters, and then, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name of our red-polled beef cows that I really, really like, because I haven't talked about them for a while, but versus the full-size cows. They're just way less exciting to be around when you're by yourself. So looking at those things, the dairy goats you can definitely run mid-60s. And back to that too, staying in shape, being up every day, walking, a legitimate weightlifting program that for strength training, because at this age, right, I'm not ever going to be as strong as I was at 35. That's just not one of those things. I was in really great shape my last year as an assistant. So, but I can be in really good shape for my age. And I think it was Mike Cernovich on Twitter talked about if you can drive yourself to the store, if you can dress yourself, and if you can bathe yourself and feed yourself, cook for yourself, right? If you can do those 4 things, which are all mobility-based things, and strength, conditioning, allow you to do all those things, right? If you can do those things, you can live on your own and have a really fine life. So till 90 or 100. I don't know. I'm realistic about age. I've seen enough of drivers that I think as I age, I'll know when it's time. But yeah, on that side, even then, getting to town a couple times a week, buy groceries in old age, there are ways to do it with good neighbors. So relationships. I keep coming back to everything is local. So the school board, where you're at. Do you know everybody on there? Do you agree with their politics? If you don't, you should be spending money to put people in place that you agree with. Whether or not that happens, you can't control that. But your local school board, your county commissioners, if you live in town, depending how the town's ran, correct? You can have a city manager, you can have a mayor, you can have city council, depending on where the power lies. Do their values align with yours? If not, is there a viable candidate out there that better represents you? And the sheriff. So if you're in a city, the police chief is appointed by either city council or the mayor. If you're in the county, that elected sheriff is super important. So for us and where we're at, those 3 county commissioner, sheriff, and school board are the three things that really, really matter as far as our quality of life, how much it's going to be affecting on a day-to-day basis, yada, yada. So very lucky we have a young sheriff. He's very good at communicating. He is working really hard. He is bold enough to actually tell folks what he thinks, and I appreciate that very much about him. The county commissioner that represents us I was talking about him today. He is a guy you can call up if you have a problem. It will get fixed. If not that day, definitely that week. So I can't say enough good things about his responsiveness and that thing. I don't know if he's thinking about anything deeply. I don't know if he's looking at policy, but for what he is tasked to do, does a world-class job. So very happy with him. School board, we just elected, he's also the police chief of Marietta proper. I'm excited about him. I know his dad's in the fire department with me. I have every reason to believe that he's going to do a really good job. Don't know enough about the other two folks, have an opinion, but that's it for us politically. And I don't think outside of that, maybe the state rep, maybe, and state senator again, but that's it for us. Where we're at, those are the only things that matter. Do those values align for the most part? Absolutely yes. The next thing I look at is supply chain. China has more concerning debt than what the United States has, and it is just everywhere. It's systemic. I don't know who is the best looking horse in the glue factory right now. They're about to go off a demographic cliff. They're not having kids. There's no one there to replace. All the cheap labor that they've had to be able to make them the premier manufacturer in the world is all about to age out in the next 15 years. So while we're trying to figure out how to fund Medicaid, Medicare, they're going to have one working adult for every 4 folks over 65. So whatever concerns I have about our Social Security, they're just going to have to discard an entire generation. So it's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out. And then you have 20 to 30 million young men who have zero chance of getting married inside of China because of the selective birth policies during the 70s and 80s, all the way up through the 90s. So the one-child policy was overturned early, 2006, somewhere in that neighborhood. Don't quote me on that. But you're going to have a bunch of young men who are being crushed by the economy and no prospects of a family. That is a dangerous combination. So there is every reason to take Taiwan just because of that. If that's going to happen, I don't know. But you have a whole bunch of young men that you can conscript, get rid of a lot of that problem, and take an island that has a very dynamic economy, and then an ethnic Han population that doesn't want to go to war with, I don't know how much bloodshed there will actually be, aside from us inflicting it. So that's going to be interesting. And General Moynihan, there's one of the AMC I should know, General, but he talked about China 2027, and his forecast is for China to take Taiwan in 2027. I don't know if it's going to last that long. So who knows? And these are all things. So what does that mean to the average Americans not in the service? The big thing is supply chains. We saw that during COVID. Imagine if there's a complete embargo, one way or the other, where the Chinese stop sending us stuff or we don't allow it. Either way. The immigration issue has continued to spiral, and it's going to be very telling on, as the economy, everybody's looking for a scapegoat. And if the economy continues to, inflation to increase, a recession, jobs to decrease, all these things, it's very easy to scapegoat folks. And that's my big concern about where this leads. And I had this conversation with a friend at work. I'm very concerned about that specific thing, about Americans scapegoating anybody. It doesn't matter, right? It can be legal immigrants. There's a ton of animosity in the tech sector towards Indian Americans, right? Or just Indians from India. Huge amount of animosity there. And then on the blue collar side, you have a ton of animosity, whether rightly so or not, against Spanish speaking immigrants. And how that plays out, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know. But it's a genuine concern. And again, all of this comes back to a couple things. How strong are your ties? Are you atomized? Do you have friends? Do you have, as a man, do you have 4 friends that you can call that will show up with shovels and a bag of lime if you call them at 3 a.m.? Do you have one? If you do, you're going to be fine. If you know your neighbors' names, if you have a great community, if you help each other, odds are in your favor. So on that side, I've never been more optimistic for my son about what lies ahead for him, because on the other side of this, you have so many folks who have chosen to give up, never going to marry, never going to have kids. They have checked them out. They have ended their 10,000, 100,000, billion years, whatever the evolutionary line of their ancestors are. It ends with them. So for my boy to have a positive mindset, to have a bunch of skills, to have a place where he can build a home, he is starting on third base. And my job as a father is to make sure for him to understand he didn't hit a triple. He's just starting on third base. So to give him all the tools, and again, I'm sure I've said 100 times about that Bruce Lee quote, rich people teach their children everything they didn't know. Poor people who get rich give their kids all the things they didn't have. So it is a big thing about, I was talking with one of my best friends tonight about a brake job. So he's got another buddy that doesn't know how to do brakes. So, and he's gonna show up. That kind of community is paramount to whatever goes forward. So what can you do on the supply chain side, right? On the food side, we are such an agriculturally rich country that I don't see any kind of, there'll be shortages inside of different industries. You may not be able to get peaches from Argentina that get shipped to Thailand and then shipped here, right? But you're going to have enough food, you're not going to starve to death. I don't see famine on the horizon here. Even if you have another Dust Bowl in the Midwest, you still have enough capacity in the rest of the country to carry. But on the other side, we saw during the pandemic, all the different supply chains, how we don't make a ton of medicine here. Multivitamins, diapers, toilet paper, all these things. So I have a book somewhere. I'm trying to remember what the gentleman's name was. It's from the 80s, but it was just inflation strategies. It was like number 1 in 81 or 82. And I'm sure I've referenced it before, because at that time, and that was towards the end of the inflationary run in the United States, he was recommending buying tinfoil, buying paper towels, toilet paper, if you have any extra money, because in a month, 6 months, that's going to be markedly more expensive. Any extra money put towards that is money saved for something else down the road. So having a year's worth of goods on hand makes a ton of sense. If you can do it, great. You're better off to not have any debt and figure it out from there. But the other thing is to continue to, in your community, church, civic organizations, whatever it is, go put that time in, work hard, meet people. And that's Andrew and I's real goal this year. So we found a church that we feel really at home in, probably going to end up joining. Very, very happy about that. So it just, from the very first time I went by myself, I think the first Sunday or two, and Andrea first time she went, we felt at home. So very happy about that. We're investing in those folks and sharing, and here's how we do things, and come out and see what we do. So we're once a month, we've got folks coming out to the farm just to share. Here's what we're doing. Because I can tell you all the mistakes that we've made. Every single mistake, I can tell you what we've done wrong. So beyond that, I don't know what else to do. Enjoy. That's the other thing too. I really appreciate this about black pilling. Knock it off. Your forefathers, forebearers saw so much worse than you will ever see. Stay positive. Know that the same genes that fought off saber-toothed tigers and made it across the plains, you're going to be all right. You're going to be fine. You're of hardy stock. So it's one of those things from time to time to take a step back and remind yourself of that. So trying to think, as the economy worsens, one of the other things to think about too, that and not saying anything bad about Andrea, but a lot of folks, men and women, but more women than men, are so tactically unaware. They're not paying attention. They're going into bad neighborhoods. They're walking through folks with bad intentions who are looking for prey, right? So that's going to be the thing. I think as the economy deteriorates, you're going to see more and more low-level street crime. Now, in places where, if we've learned anything from El Salvador, you can solve the problem in a year. So I don't know if we're going to get to that point or not. And they do it for cheap down there. You better hope your family brings you food in El Salvador if you're in prison, because otherwise you're going to be really thin. So how's that going to go? I think you're going to see a bigger divergence, just like the rich-poor thing. You're going to see areas that are super safe, and you're going to see areas that are basically no-go zones. So if you don't have to live there, it's going to be something that no one just goes in. And you can look at South Africa. You can look at just the crime rate in Europe with a ton of migrants that have come in, and just how much it changes. And right, and it's not the whole country, but you're going to have big pockets, and they're easy to find out, but you have to be able and willing to ask, hard questions. So aside from that, now's the time. If you're up north, get those fruit trees in. Have them ready to put in the ground. Return on investment. Leg Creek Nursery is where I get my bare root trees here in Texas. Isom's out of Georgia. I think they're both about done selling bare root, but there's going to be a bare root somebody nearby. If you're in Idaho, Sand Hollow Nursery was absolutely spectacular for what they did. Wonderful place. But for a $20 peach tree for the bare root, it's $35 if you're buying them at a big box store now. When you look at the price of fruit, and it takes 3 to 5 years, depending on the tree and frost and all this, before you get a sizable harvest. But, from that point forward, you're going to be 20 pounds of peaches is, what are they, $3 a pound now? $60. Worst case, and 20 pounds of peaches is roughly 25 decent sized peaches, 30. That is easy to get to. So the first harvest you get, you've recouped your costs. And then every year after that, it's just a huge return on that investment. Perennials, whether that's asparagus or what's the artichoke, the Jerusalem artichoke, anything like that just comes back. Blackberries, raspberries, currants, gooseberries, mulberries, elderberries, all those things, persimmons, all your fruit trees, all your evergreen bushes, or not evergreen, your perennial bushes that produce fruit, all wins. And a lot of that, like Nanking cherry, ground cherry, you can train as a hedge. It's beautiful and showy in the spring. The cherries aren't the best. There's not a ton of flavor there, but for pies, for canning, throw some sugar in there, good to go. That's why I keep coming back to. For us, I'm the first person to tell you, like the investment thing, not my bag. Do not take any advice from me about anything. But on the flip side, over the last 11 years, 10 years, 13 years, 12 years that I've been married, um, we have built a fantastic amount of tools and skills. So those are the things that you can invest in, that you can give to your kids, you can give to your friends, family. Once you've learned how to build anything, it's pretty easy to just duplicate that. And the more you duplicate it, the better you get. So those are my thoughts. No debt. Be able to feed yourself. And invest in your community. Because when you're gone, I'll tell you this, listening to folks talk about old timers and saying so-and-so was a good, fair man, and he was always kind, he took care and he fed, Mima or whoever, when they got sick or what, those things matter. So that's it. Thanks for listening. And I think that was episode 37.